Welcome back to the cinema, True Sleuths and Horror Hounds. It's True Horror Stories, and we are here for another edition of 80s Cinema Carnage. In this installment, we're going to go over the movie Cat People that came out in 1982, which is also a remake or reimagining of the 1942 version of Cat People. Now for this one, I didn't pick it because of the cover or the summary at the back. I picked this particular movie because I knew of one specific thing. David motherfucking Bowie. I don't need to know any more. I don't need to know in what capacity he's involved with this movie. I just want to watch it because his name is attached in one way, shape, or form. Now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and look at the cover for the movie. And what I see is extremely pleasing, let me tell you. On the cover, we see this gorgeous, assumedly naked woman in the rain with green cat eyes looking at you like she just wants to fuck the living hell out of you. Like with most other 80s horror covers, we have a tagline that says, "An erotic fantasy about the animal in us all." Ooh boy, that definitely backs up what I'm thinking about when I'm looking at this woman on the cover. The summary for this movie is as follows. A young woman's sexual awakening brings horror when she discovers her urges transform her into a monstrous black leopard. Is this a furry movie?
If you liked it, then you should have put a leash on it. If you liked it, then you should have put a leash on it. Don't be mad once you see that they want it. Cause if you liked it, then you should have put a leash on it.
Oh god, no. Okay, let's cleanse our palates with some stupid Rotten Tomatoes comments before I vomit everywhere. Our first stupid Rotten Tomatoes comment is from Adriano B that gives a 2.5-star rating and says the following. Akin to The Hunger, I'm assuming that's another movie, without the elegance and the lavish, so 80s grandeur, Katz and Natasha Kinski's character have something in common. A little brain and a passion for balls of wool, rated high for tits value. Soft kitty, warm kitty, little ball of fur. Yes, I had to sing that. Go fuck yourself. Okay, Adriano B, take your rose-colored glasses off and get this straight. The 80s was not lavish, it was not elegant, it was blood, guts, and sex. Get that through your thick skull before you even try talking to me about this shit. Our next stupid comment is from Francis T, who gives a 2.5-star rating and says the following. Too much sexuality for an horror movie. It's a horror movie. You don't even know how to fucking English good. And that takes away from the magic of the story. Great casting, but sadly filmed to give what the audience wants instead of making art falls short. What did I just tell the other Redditor? There is no art in the 80s. They are trying to make money, and they made money by showing tits, ass, blood, and gore. Get it right. Holy shit. You are trying to put an artistic spin on a time period where they made movies that had shit like this in them. Our final stupid Reddit comment is from Tim R with a 1-star rating that says the following. Exploitative remake that replaces the atmosphere and drama of the original with nudity and blood. Oh my god, here we fucking go again. While Natasha Kinski nude isn't something to complain about, I bet it isn't. Her and the rest of the cast's acting, could Malcolm McDowell scream "I'm evil" any more than he did? Not to mention that most of the characters act arbitrary to how the movie needs them to rather than based on any natural character progression. The original had room to be improved, but this remake missed on all of them. Why are these people trying to make art out of this? Why? I don't understand. I really don't. Before I go absolutely insane with I can't even, let's get into the review of Cat People. Put on your 3D glasses, turn the lights down, turn the TV volume up, and let's get into another edition of 80s Cinema Carnage. The movie starts out with this beautiful mixture of Egyptian-like music and David Bowie's phenomenal voice, and this ominous panning out of the camera to show a litany of skulls and bones as if we are looking at a desert graveyard. The camera pans to a beautiful shot of this black leopard on a rock under a dead tree in the middle of the desert with a sandstorm, with David Bowie's beautiful voice and music still going to keep that ambiance. With the music still going, we get our first taste of what the lore is to this story as we pan away to a village of people digging in the sand, and we see these tribesmen grab a young girl and pull her away from her mother and tie her to the same tree we saw the black leopard sitting under. We see the mother sitting by the tree where her daughter is tied up from day to night when the black leopard comes out and returns to the spot we first saw it in. It walks right up to the girl that's tied to the tree and puts its front paws on her shoulders, and we cut away from the scene to find the mother and daughter walking away from the tree. The mother brings the girl to a cave near the tree where we saw them at, and when the girl goes into the cave, we see the black leopard again, and they lock eyes for a long moment before we transition to the gaze of our protagonist, Irina, who is at an airport terminal. She's walking around aimlessly as if she doesn't know where to go or she just arrived, and as she's going towards a payphone, this guy in a black suit follows behind her and stops her from making a call. This guy's name is Paul, and he leans in and makes this creepy whispering in her ear gesture to tell her welcome home. We then find out that they are in New Orleans, and they take a short taxi ride to where Paul lives, and we meet another character, Female, which is spelt like female. She then explains that this is because she was orphaned and they didn't know what her name was, so on her birth certificate they put child female, and because the person that adopted her or took care of her didn't speak English very well, she thought that female was her name and pronounced it as Female. Prior to this explanation from her, we learned that Female has been waiting for Irina for a long time and is very, very excited to see her. We also find out that Paul is Irina's brother. The next scene we get to is where things got really fucking weird for me, and I swear to God, I had goosebumps because I just wanted to crawl out of my skin and stop watching this already. We see the three having a dinner, and while Irina is trying to talk about the family that adopted her, because apparently her and Paul were separated at a young age where she was 4, he asks her if they had told her about him at all.
Did they ever tell you how our parents died?
Yes.
What did they tell you about me?
Well, not much. I mean, I knew I had a brother, but I was only 4. I used to fantasize about you when I was in the orphanage.
Fantasize?
Well, you know, about you coming to rescue me and things. Daydreams.
Yes, I had the same dream.
What is it with the 80s and incest storylines? Because that's really fucking weird and fucking gross. Shit gets even more awkward in the next scene when we see Paul taking Irina upstairs to show her a surprise, which ends up being this big cabinet full of circus stuff that apparently belonged to their family. Their grandfather owned a circus, their parents worked at the circus, and the kids were training to be a part of the circus as well. Don't exactly hear anything about what happened to the parents or why they died, but we literally see Paul Joe Biden sniff her hair before showing her some of the stuff that's in there. He starts doing this juggling act with this weird fucking song or chant thing, and the look they're giving each other is just utterly insane, and I wanted to puke up my ice cream while I was watching. Just when I thought it wasn't gonna get any worse, we see Irina sleeping peacefully. Paul walks out past the dining room where they were eating previously. Female just gives them this long look that is really apprehensive for some reason before he goes upstairs into her room and just starts staring at her while she's sleeping. He does this weird little hop and sits on the frame of the bed like cats would and starts growling at her. And I'm going, what the fuck is happening right now? We skip to seeing this woman going towards a massage parlor, and from the interaction with the guy that works there, she's there for a John as an escort, aka hooker. She goes upstairs to the room where he's at and starts talking to him because he's not in the room and the bathroom door is wide open. She thinks that he's in the bathroom and starts explaining the rules for payment and what payment goes towards and how much is what, and he doesn't respond at all, so she starts to get kind of aggravated. When she looks down, she sees a black tail twitching back and forth from under the bed. She kind of kicks at it a little bit, and after a short time of suspense and her pretty much getting really scared, we hear the roar of a wild cat, and she gets grabbed by the ankle and pulled down under the bed. She gets away from whatever it is that's attacking her, crawls down the stairs screaming for help, rolls over, her tits come out. Obviously, it's the fucking 80s, this is not anything shocking. And she starts screaming like she's being attacked again. We cut away from this and we find that there are a lot of police at that hotel. A truck that is for zoologists or some sort of animal control that deals with exotic animals show up and take a look at the camera that is put inside of the room where this had all happened. They're looking at it and they're asking where the John is. They have no idea. The guy that works there didn't see anybody run out. The back door's locked. There are bars on the window to the room. They have no idea where that person is. Or they're assuming that they may have gotten caught or they ran away. They do know that there is a black leopard in that room under the bed. You see it come out and roam around. They talk back and forth about how they want to handle the situation and decide they're going to tranquilize and remove the animal. They grab a couple of walkie-talkies and one of the zoologists goes onto a ladder that is leaning directly to the window into that room, and the other goes into the surveillance room to keep eye on the video camera and guide the other guy around. When the first guy walks up the ladder to look into the window, he tries cleaning it off and sets the leopard completely bonkers. The leopard running directly into the window and busting it open, basically attacking him. He gets rushed by this, cocks the gun, and shoots a trank into the backside of the leopard, making it go absolutely batshit crazy, bouncing around the room, tearing everything apart, totally pissed off, running around to the point where some of the ceiling in the room below, which is the surveillance room, starts to break and fall off. While we see that tranquilizer scene, we jump to where Irina is sleeping and she shoots awake immediately. She knows something is wrong and she walks out of the room and goes to Paul's bedroom door, knocking on it and asking if he's there. This string of scenes ends with the animal control people going into the room where the leopard is passed out in order to extract it and put it in a cage somewhere where it can be taken care of. Irina goes downstairs where Famala is watching cartoons and having coffee and asks her where Paul is, only to be just completely cut off with, "Oh, he's fine, don't worry about him, just have coffee, eat breakfast." And it's this awkward situation and tone where you can kind of tell that Famala might know something is wrong, but is refusing to tell Irina about it. Irina goes off on her own, and instead of going and getting a tour guide to supplement Paul not being there to show her the sights, she decides she's gonna go right to his work and see if he's there. One of the other ladies or his coworker says he's not. She leaves after being offered to see his office, and you could tell there's something very wrong and she's very upset about the situation. Irina ends up driving by a local zoo and insists upon getting out, not knowing that the jaguar we saw in the previous set of scenes is actually there. She goes in and directly walks towards where the large cats are and stops directly in front of that cage where the black leopard is being held. We cut back to the office of the zoo, which is just above the leopard's cage, where the employees there, including the people that caught the leopard, are talking about what they're going to do with it. They say that they can't trade it to another zoo because it's too violent and because of its history. They can't breed it because it's too violent and because of its history. And they're not going to euthanize it, period, no matter how much it might cost them to keep the leopard alive. We cut to the nighttime after the zoo had closed and the curator's getting his stuff taken care of, putting everything away, and stops when he hears the leopard still roaring and being generally upset. He looks out the window and sees Irina just standing there, drawing something on her sketch pad, and goes downstairs to see what she's doing there, only for her to just take off running. As soon as she turns the corner, she jumps up like a fucking cat onto the wall, which he finds her at, and goes, "How the hell did you get up there?" When she comes down and he introduces himself, she introduces herself to him and he asks her what exactly has been going on, why she's there after an hour and a half past the close time of the zoo. He finds that she's running a fever and takes her inside of his office. We see the two in the curator's office, and there's this weird interaction between them that I guess you could say is flirty, where he's trying to get her to stay and take some aspirin. She refuses because she doesn't believe in medicine. Go fucking figure. They chat back and forth. He makes a joke about women being into him or women getting excited around him, and she doesn't take it as a joke. And for some reason, somehow, they end up going on a date, which just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. What was even weirder though is she said that she didn't eat meat when he said that he knew of a good steakhouse in town. That's really interesting because we kind of know what's going on and what's gonna happen. We then obviously go to see them on their dinner date, and they go to an oyster bar seafood restaurant. That's really odd to me because she said she doesn't eat meat, but she'll eat seafood. Isn't that kind of meat? I think so. That's kind of weird and kind of hypocritical and kind of counterintuitive, but whatever. We'll go with it. They start talking back and forth about each other. His job is the curator of the zoo. He asks her if she has a job, and she says no, but she's looking for some sort of work with commercial art. And out of fucking nowhere, he asks her if she wants to work at the gift shop at the zoo. And she at first is like, no, I can't do that. And then he makes this really stupid, quirky joke of, well, I'll go talk to the curator and I'll be right back, because he is the curator. It's just really, really awkward and really fucking weird how they're going back and forth with each other. And I'm kind of starting to see what the stupid Rotten Tomatoes commenters were saying. We generally get a bunch of throwaway scenes after this. The only thing that we actually really care about or should care about is that the curator is dating one of the other workers at the zoo, particularly the girl with the radio that was with him, helping him with getting the black leopard. After that, we cut to the curator looking through the window at Irina and checking out her butt.
I ain't gonna lie, that girl had a big ass, though. Everybody say it with me. That ass. That ass.
More absolutely useless scenes, see an orangutan watching Rosemary's Baby, and then we get the girl that the curator's dating coming in to talk to Irina and asking her out to dinner after work. And I'm thinking, holy shit, this is gonna get weird. Because she immediately goes, oh, you're Oliver's friend. Oliver's the curator. I finally actually remembered his fucking name because I didn't really catch it. So that really tells you that something's probably gonna go down. That's usually the cue from women. You're gonna die. We get to see these two women at a bar, and the conversation they have is so fucking cringy. I will tell you right now, I have never heard women talk like this. This is basically men writing for women and not knowing what the fuck they actually talk about.
Jesus, don't encourage these assholes, please. Why do you not encourage them? I tell them I'm gay. What if they believe me? I should be so lucky. If you want to get laid, you can do a lot better than that, believe me. I was just being friendly. I was not trying to get laid. Occasionally, they're compatible. I wouldn't know. How come? I just never met anybody I liked enough to have sex with. Never? Not so far, no. Really? You're still a virgin? Oh, don't make it sound so perverse. Oh, no, not at all. Just incomprehensible, maybe, especially these days. Oh, you must have come close, once or twice. Yeah, once or twice. How close? Oh, come on. The first parents I lived with, well, the mother was okay, but the father was kind of... Oh, well, that's, yeah. He used to grab me when I went by. Overhand or underhand? Underhand. I know the type.
The camera panned to the mirror in front of the girls at the bar, and we see this Eartha Kitt looking bitch getting up, looking like she's seen a fucking ghost, and whispering, mi hermana. Obviously that means my sister. Both the girls looking like, what the fuck is going on? I had hoped at this point that the cringe conversation would stop, but good lord it doesn't, and oh my god, it gets fucking worse. They start talking about Irina's first time, and women don't talk like this! They don't talk like this! Fuck!
Mi hermana, my sister. She's probably drunk. So what happened? I don't remember what the boy you liked. All right, so, you know, we petted and stuff like that. He wanted to go all the way, and so did I, but I don't know, I got scared. He looked so, huge. God, what's his name? Quick. Oh, I guess I'm a romantic. When it's right, it'll happen. It'll be magical. I'm not knocking it. Oh, just an imagine.
We go right back to the zoo, and we are seeing one of the other zoo employees working on cleaning out the cage where the black leopard is. And when the animal doesn't do what he wants him to do, he starts trying to get him to shoo away. When the animal doesn't move away and just starts getting pissed and attacking the cage, he asks to get a cattle prod. The next scene is so fucking ridiculous. I died of laughter, and this is exactly my reaction to it while it was playing. Why are you putting a cattle prod on your arm, you dumbass? What are you doing? What are you doing? Come on! This is not gonna end. Oh! Oh! Ah! Ah! What the? Get him! Get him! What? Homeboy, why are you putting your fucking arm in the cage when you know there's a dangerous, pissed off animal? That is not gonna end well. And it definitely didn't! The scene ends with blood being spilled on the floor around Irina's feet and staining her white shoes, which I'm guessing is some sort of tainting of innocence reference that's absolutely lost on me because I was laughing too fucking hard at the prior parts of the scene. I'm assuming that something bad happened to Homeboy because Oliver goes back to some sort of shed with a load of rifles in it, picks one up, and his girlfriend, Alice, I guess that's her name, I had to go look it up because I just didn't care enough watching it, I guess that tells you how the movie's going, is with him. He goes to the cage where the black leopard's supposed to be, and it's gone. He's gone to go put the leopard down, and it's fucking gone. In the next scene, we see Irina coming home and looking for Famale, who doesn't respond at all when she's called out to. She goes upstairs, goes into her room, and sits down, looking pretty much disgruntled and completely out of it from what she had just witnessed. And guess who's back? It's Joe Brother. Where have you been, homie? And he looks like absolute fucking ass. When she tries to tell him about what she saw that day, he interrupts her and starts doing this fucked up shit.
I didn't think you were ready, but you are. I knew it when I saw you with him.
Who? Oliver?
You want to fuck him, don't you? You dream about fucking him. Your whole body burns. It burns all along your nerves. And your mouth, your breasts. You go wet between your legs.
Stop it!
Every time it happens, you tell yourself that it's love. But it isn't. It's blood. Death. You can't escape the nightmare without me. And I can't escape without you.
And my jaw hits the floor because literally after this scene, he tries to fucking rape her. Irina freaks the fuck out before jumping out the goddamn window and trying to run away. While she's running away from her brother, she sees a police car coming up and immediately stops them, only to turn around and see that Paul's disappeared into thin air. They take her back home and ask her if she's okay, and everything seems to be looking fine, like she's gonna get away scot-free, no issues, until another cop, a canine unit, pulls up, and the dog starts freaking the fuck out, because it knows something is wrong with the situation here. Apparently they found some shit because the next scene we see cops questioning Famale, going, "Where were you?" She says she was asleep. "What's going on down in the basement?" She says she never goes down there, and you immediately know something was found. And boy oh boy was something found in the basement. The camera pans and we see that Alice and Oliver have obviously been called because of the black leopard situation, and they're taken downstairs to a stinky basement with dead, decomposed corpses everywhere. And the cop says there's at least 3 in there, probably more, buried around the premises, and that there were a lot of dead hookers found with their genitals torn out. Like, what? The whole theory that they have is that there's some sort of ritual going on downstairs and they were feeding the leopard because there's a cage in there, which is where the bodies are. And I'm just like, what? What is happening, man? What the fuck? The theories get fucking weirder because the cop says that they know about Paul because of his really fucked up psychological record, and then he's a religious fanatic. Alice decides to be a complete cunt and go, well, Irina's his sister, maybe she's involved. Oliver pipes up and goes, no, that's fucking stupid. She's only been here for a week. How the fuck would she know what's going on? And the cop goes, well, we don't suspect her, so totally cool. That cuts to Famale being arrested, which I'm not shocked about because she definitely knew what the fuck was going on. Irina watches the cops take Famale away, and then Oliver makes the bright as fuck decision to bring Irina back to his house for the night. They spend the night in separate rooms, nothing happening, and the next morning we're seeing them in his truck driving out to the countryside. And Homeboy is just touching on her ear and making these stupid dad jokes while they're driving, and the only thing going through my mind is, bro, you gonna fuck her yet? They get out of the car and go to this big red house on the bayou, and he starts teaching her how to crab fish. And I'm once again thinking, as he's staring at her ass, dude, you gonna fuck her yet?
I ain't gonna lie, that girl had a big ass, though. Everybody say it with me. That ass. That ass.
The weird sexual shenanigans continue when we cut to a cemetery where this blonde bimbo is walking away from a friend, clearly from a funeral or some sort. Paul is just standing there and weirdly asks to take a picture of the girl, who has no idea that this guy's an absolute fucking psychopath, and lets him take the picture. We cut to Oliver taking a picture of Irina, and dude, you gonna fuck her yet? Directly after that, she's asking if he hears something. He comes up behind her, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? You've got a girlfriend. Because he goes, oh, that's the alligators, and you know how to keep them away, right?
Yeah, that's alligators who are gonna eat us.
Alligators.
Yeah? There's only one way to keep them away, you know what that is? You have to make love.
Homeboy is macking on her, touching her tits and everything, and starts taking her inside, and she stops and looks at him and goes, I can't do it. And you can just see the blue balls on his face. It cuts to Paul with the bimbo from earlier, both butt naked, and he's looking like I couldn't get it up. And I'm just giggling to myself like, this is hysterical, y'all are fucking weird. The giggles intensify because the bimbo says this, and I'm gonna play the audio, but I'm not gonna show the video since they're both naked and I don't want to get kind of fucked off of YouTube for that.
Oh, don't be upset, baby. It happened.
I like you.
Well, that's no problem, hon. I like you too.
Don't understand.
Oh, sure I do. You're just a little nervous, that's all. I know how to take care of men like you. You just need some time.
After all that weird baby talking, she says, let mama take care of it, and leans down to blow him before the scene just cuts off. And I'm just feeling very, very awkward. Just as a disclaimer, I'm not calling her a bimbo to be mean or to be derogatory in any way towards women. I just do not like the way she's being played, and I have to kind of voice my opinion on that. We finally start seeing signs of Irina being a Catwoman when she wakes up and gets really frisky watching Oliver sleep. So frisky, in fact, that she goes outside, strips naked, has this weird LSD trip, looking around at things. Not really, but I know it's trying to show the vision of a cat, but still, looks like a fucking LSD trip. She's looking at this rabbit, and she gets this licking her lips, I'm hungry kind of face, and all you see is her kind of preying on it, slowly walking behind it, then attacking, and the scene immediately cuts. Oliver starts to wake up when he hears the screen door opening, looks up to see Irina walking into the house, and when he turns the light on, you see her stark naked with blood all over her face and shoulders, and she just screams, "Don't look at me," and swats the lamp away, busting the lamp and cutting the scene off. Shit just gets weirder because we find Paul in the next scene naked on the floor in the bathroom of whatever hotel he's in, with pieces of what looks like black fur and that weird jelly stuff that we saw in the bedroom where the hooker was towards the beginning of the movie and in the cage after Paul escapes from captivity. He slowly gets up and steadies himself with his hands on the sink, looking into the mirror. He sees one of those flabby pieces of skin on his stomach, pulls it off and puts it in his mouth like it's bologna, shaking his head back and forth like animals do when they're tearing at meat. He's chewing on it, trying to drink water, and then just pukes it back up. The girl that he was with is dead, and it's a gruesome scene. We see the police, Oliver and Alice show up because it's connected to the Panther thing again. The cop tells Oliver he hopes that he didn't eat breakfast that morning before the scene cuts off. Oliver gets back home to find Irina packed up and trying to leave, telling him she's losing her fucking mind and she thinks she's starting to become like Paul. Oliver stops her and flat out, in the cheesiest way I've ever seen, that he loves her and he doesn't care about anything else, and he wants her to stay and he's not gonna let her go. She asked this really weird question that if I were Oliver would set red flags off in my fucking head. She goes, "Would you still love me if we could never have sex?" And the dude goes, "What? Don't be crazy." Like, he just doesn't understand that she's not joking about this shit. And once again, we get the creep factor when the camera pans up a tree and there's Paul staring at them, looking at Oliver like, "You're stealing my woman, you're touching my territory, I'm gonna fucking kill you." In the next scene, we see Oliver flying in a helicopter with what I'm assuming is another cop. And there are a bunch of cops in the bayou tall grass field walking in line as if they're doing some sort of police call or they're looking for something. It cuts to Oliver talking to a detective, and he starts bitching at Oliver, saying that there's not enough money to keep doing this after the week of searching, and they need to call it off. And Oliver says he's batshit insane, and as soon as the guy responds and says, "You should have shot him beforehand, and you hesitated," Oliver just whines back and gives him a big fucking crack to the face. Oliver apologizes for smacking the shit out of the guy, and Alice is looking at him like, what the fuck is going on? It cuts to Oliver and Alice in his truck, and she's asking what the fuck's going on, asks about Irene, and immediately touches a nerve when she says that her type will always be okay. Which totally shows the jealousy this woman has over Oliver choosing Irina over her. Because remember, towards the beginning of this movie, we see them kissing on each other, and they are flirting like crazy. I assume they're together. Now, he's decided he's gonna go with the new girl. Oliver eventually has enough of it and tells her to shut the fuck up, which she does, and is clearly rattled by him even saying that to her. The next scene we get is in Oliver's house, and Irina is laying in bed, reading a magazine, not giving a fuck, just totally chill. We see Paul coming outside the window looking all crazy and shit, and she finally notices that he's there. He just pounces through the fucking window like he sprung out of the new fucking Cats movie, and she jumps into the same position that's utterly ridiculous. And if it wasn't ridiculous enough, we see Paul kneel down in front of her and beg her to have sex with him.
Save me. Only you can stop this killing. You've got to make love with me. As brother and sister. I searched for you for so long, from one foster home to another. We can live together as mates. Just as our parents did. You do know that they were brother and sister, don't you? Oh, yeah. Make love with me and save both. No. I'm not like you. Well, that's the lie that will kill your lover. At least let me spare you that horror.
What the fuck is this? What the fuck? I don't get it. Obviously, she's telling him no, she's not into it, she doesn't want to have sex with her brother, and he just does not like it and gets increasingly more pissed off about it. Eventually, he walks up to her. He's standing where the broken window is, and he just picks up a big shard of glass and basically threatens her, saying he has no other choice. The woman is apparently very smart because she gets his guard down, gets the shard of glass out of his hand, and once he's on his knees thinking he's gonna get his way, she stabs him in the hand and takes the fuck off.
And you leave me with no choice.
I'll come with you, okay? We'll go together, you know, okay? It'll be all right.
Keep keep in mind that he also pissed her off because prior to this thing with the glass, he told her that Oliver does not love you. He loves the panther in you because he fears it. And then traces back to Alice and says, well, Alice loves him because she thinks his fear is courage, and Oliver thinks that his fear is love, which to me does not make any fucking sense. This is some weird Jedi shit. After Irina's taken off, we see this really cool practical effects scene where the hand that got stabbed is ripping open to show the leopard's paw, and it's just really cool watching it go from those just tear marks with the black fur underneath it to the claws just poking out of where his knuckles were. It's just so fucking cool, and it's one of the reasons why I love 80s practical effects. The next scene is probably one of the only redeemable ones in this movie, and I just fucking love what they did here. We see Alice and Oliver show back up at his house. They go inside, and while Alice starts to make coffee, Oliver goes up to Irina's room to look for her and hears a crash. As soon as he walks into the room, we start to hear the growling of the black leopard, and in the corner is Paul, half fucking formed. We see his eyes glowing in just the dark and only flashes of lightning coming through the windows to show the transformation from man to leopard. He screams at him and then starts walking up to him, and as he's walking up to him, he transitions in the dark from being half human, half leopard to full-blown leopard. It's just so fucking cool. It is peak beautiful practical effects, and I'm just watch it for yourself. At this point, we're gonna go into the more spoiler territory parts of the movie. So if you wanna watch this for yourself, I highly suggest that you click off of the video right about now. We get this cool face-off scene between Black Leopard, Paul, and Oliver. Oliver starts screaming for Alice, grabbing some sort of tarp and throwing it over Paul while he tries to run away and get behind the bed in the room to get some sort of protection. While he's screaming for her to get into the room, she opens the door and shuts it immediately, Paul swatting at the doorknob and knocking off the other end so that she can't get in. He screams to go get the shotgun, which is exactly what she does. She breaks open the glass to the case with all of the guns in it, grabs a shotgun, runs up the stairs, and just as Paul is about to jump and attack Oliver, she fires and sends Paul out the window onto the ground below. When they look out to see what's happened, Irina is right there looking down at her bleeding brother and starts to let out this pained roar that clearly shows that she cared to some extent about him, even if he was an evil, sadistic, gross bastard. Our next scene basically confirms that Paul is definitely dead, because we see Oliver going back to the zoo into his office into what looks like a coronary room with an autopsy table. We see him pull the leopard's body out and onto an autopsy table. What I kind of thought was cool was they had to have gone through multiple stages of moving out an actual leopard and some sort of dummy, because you can tell by the beginning shots of this scene that that's an actual leopard that they must have tranquilized at some point. I can confirm that with a small snippet of the scene where you can see that it's breathing and it's got its tongue lolled out like cats do when they're passed out. While Oliver is starting to cut Leopard Paul open, he breaks the bones, and you're getting this intense feeling from what's happening and the sound or lack thereof in the background as he's cutting the ribs apart. Once he finishes cutting the ribs apart, he goes to pull open the carcass, and this gross decaying human hand and arm just flips out of it, and this weird green gas fills the room, making Oliver look pretty much sick. Once the mist kind of disperses, we see that the body is just disintegrated onto the table. Does this have something to do with the magic we saw at the very beginning of the movie? Does this mean that the spirit's transferred to Oliver? I have no clue at this point. We cut to the police station where Famale is being kept, and that Irina is there to visit her to tell her what happened to Paul. She doesn't even have to. Famale already knows. She says it outright as soon as she sits down. And when Irina tries to get some sort of answers, she tells her, you already know what the answer is. Irina asks, what should she do? Where should she go? Famale tells her, you should just chain yourself up like Paul did. Don't love anybody. Don't get involved with people. Just lock yourself up. And when Irina asks one more time, where should she go when Famale is trying to leave the visiting room, she says this, and I was literally shooketh.
It doesn't matter where you go, does it?
Irina takes Famale's advice and packs everything up, going to the train station in the next scene and taking the train up to Richmond. While she's on the train, she falls asleep and starts having this very lucid dream of her walking into the desert we saw at the very beginning of the movie. There's this weird little part of it that has Paul walking up like this weird fucking sand Baywatch scene. Paul leads Irina to a tree full of leopards and says this particular monologue that is both interesting, enlightening, and fucking weird. Long ago, our ancestors sacrificed their children to the leopards. The souls of the children grew inside the leopards until the leopards became human. We were gods then. We are an incestuous race. We can only make love with our own, otherwise we transform. And before we can become human again, we must kill. Welcome home. Once again, what the fuck is up with the 80s and incest storylines? I mean, we had it in Pin, which wasn't exactly fucking explained, but in here there's a storyline behind it that kinda makes sense, but it's still fucking gross. Even more trippy is Paul walks up to this particular leopard and leans against the tree, and the leopard says, Irina. Irina immediately recognizes that voice as her mother. The ever-loving fuck. After she realizes that, she's told to go back to where she'd left, back to Oliver and Alice to tie up any unfinished business. We see Alice going on a jog, and the camera's panning around as if somebody's following her. While she's running, she gets increasingly more uneasy and starts looking around like she knows something is following her. The movie decides it wants to be a fucking dick and give us a diversion with her going to the specific spot, and we're seeing the paws of the leopard, assuming that's Irina, following around the same area, but a big dog jumps up onto Alice instead of the cat, and we're just like, what the fuck? And right after that, they're dicks again and give us another stupid scare with Alice jogging towards a building and a trolley going right in front of her, making this loud sound as it stops and the doors open. Fuck you guys. The building she's running towards is a gym, we find out not too long after this stupid little jump scare, and she's asking the lady there to go take a swim, even though the gym is closed. The lady tells her she has 5 minutes. We get some beautiful nudity. It's not like we've gotten copious amounts of that this entire movie. As soon as Alice is stripped down to her panties, we hear this clicking of nails or heels on tile. She looks to see what the heck's going on. Why is there somebody there? Is there anybody there? Is she hearing things? We hear the roar of a leopard, and the dumb woman goes right for the pool and jumps in, starting to swim. You're hearing a leopard. You just dealt with this shape-shifting leopard dude that you just killed, and you're taking this shit so lightly. I don't get it. I really don't. She isn't swimming very long, and we get this kind of hilarious scene of the lights turning off, and she's freaking out, looking around the room, with the only light being that from the pool. She's just spinning and spinning and spinning and getting more worked up. It sounds like the leopard is running around the room, stalking her. After a few seconds, we see Irina pop into the room through the doorway to the locker room and turn the lights on and go, "What's wrong? Why are you so scared?" She's got this completely different demeanor where she'd gone from this meek, scared kind of girl that gets embarrassed about pretty much anything to this demure, sexy, sensual woman who just knows she owns the fucking world. And it's the funniest thing to have the lady that works at the gym come out when Irina's talking to Alice. And Alice freaks out, saying flat out, "You're trying to fucking kill me." While Irina is clearly gloating over the situation, the lady that works there is freaking out like, what the fuck is happening? Irina plays this off perfectly and tells her that she's just looking for Oliver. She went to the hospital and he wasn't there, so she was going to find Alice so that she would find Oliver, and just leaves. Obviously, Irina's added insult to injury because when the lady that works there gives Alice her clothes back, it's got claw marks all the way through it, it's torn up, and she's just going, oh my god, what the fuck? Of course, we find where Oliver's at because we see him get home and go into the room that Irina was staying in, which apparently also doubles as the photo development room. He goes into that little photo development area, pulls the curtains, and starts developing a picture of Irina. Once he's done that, he's put that up next to a bunch of other pictures of her, and then one picture of the leopard. He looks down and sees what looks like a sketch alongside a picture of the leopard, and something kind of clicks in his head for a moment, but he doesn't get too much time to think about it because the telephone rings and he goes to pick that up.
One of these things just doesn't belong here.
He doesn't get the chance to pick up the first call because the phone is actually picked up off of the receiver, so whoever was calling got hung up on for the most part. He puts it back and gets another phone call from Alice, who's saying that she tried to call him earlier, asking him if he's okay. He says he's fine, and while she's trying to tell him that Irina's been following her, she thinks she's gonna hurt her, he's looking in a picture frame and sees Irina in the reflect. He basically just kind of shoos Alice off and hangs up so that he can go talk to her and find out what's going on. She immediately, without another word, or any word at all, starts stripping and leading him up the stairs to one of the beds. Homeboy is just like, I'm kind of not sure what's going on, but okay, I'm down, and follows her up there like nothing's going on. We see Oliver come up to look at her while she's sitting down, and we have another installment of people do not talk like this.
Are you scared?
I'm in danger.
Oh boy, it's awkward sex scene time. I wonder how long this is gonna be. Answer that question, too fucking long and really, really, really awkward. Just like most of this movie has been, because whoever wrote this shit doesn't know how human interaction actually fucking works. We get Irina's version of Paul just finishing having sex with the bimbo at the hotel earlier, and she looks in the mirror, puts her hand between her legs, and looks at her fingers to see there's blood. Now, instead of putting the bologna skin in her mouth because she hasn't transformed, she rubs the blood on her lips and just stares at it for a second before freaking out a little bit and going back to bed. I'm grossed out at this point. I'm just going, this is just getting weirder and weirder within a tiny time period. Of course, her being human doesn't last very long because she lays down in bed with Oliver again, knocked the fuck out on his side of the bed. She's staring at the ceiling, sees a fly, and as soon as she goes to grab it, we see just her hand clawing at the bed and tearing it up. When we get up to her face, she's starting to turn, and you can slowly see her becoming the leopard, and unlike Paul, she hates it. She doesn't like it at all. You can tell the difference between when he transformed and him enjoying it, and her not liking it whatsoever. So not only has she lost her virginity in the sexual sense, she's lost her virginity in the leopard transformation sense at this point. And as soon as she's full leopard, Oliver wakes up, and when he looks up, he's got a big-ass cat looking down at him like those Hello Human doggo memes. Luckily for Oliver, she's cognizant enough, even in that form, that when he says that he recognizes her as Irina, she jumps out the window and leaves instead of killing him like her brother probably would have. She gets out, she's walking across the street, and 2 motorcycle cops see her and just skid out like, what the fuck is happening? What did we just see?
What the fuck was that?
Alice shows up at Oliver's house and says that they found the leopard on a bridge and the police have it cornered. So both of them get into Oliver's car and start driving towards where this scene is. I just couldn't help but laugh because of the facial expressions of the actors and the complete duality of it, because you've got Oliver in the car staring off seriously like he's about to kick some ass, and Alice next to him going, "Duh!" with their mouth open. It's just hysterical. They pull up to the scene and there's just cop cars galore. They've got Irina trapped in between 2 police vehicles and a helicopter flying around putting a spotlight on her, which Alice and Oliver are let through after some dumb cops stop them. You can visibly see the Panther is scared of what's going on as it paces back and forth between the cars. While she's pacing around, she sees Oliver and goes, "Oh fuck," deciding she's gonna jump off of the bridge and into the water, with cops just firing at her like crazy. And Oliver, like the asshole that he is, immediately leaves the scene and just leaves Alice there, like he gives absolutely no fucks to go chase after Irina. Oliver, gun in hand, drives to the Red Bayou house that we saw them in earlier in the movie. He starts walking up to the house and hears something off in the distance to his left. So he decides to go towards that, very cautiously looking around. And while he's doing that, a leg falls down from a tree and he looks up to see that the guy that we saw when they showed up the first time is deader than dead. That can only mean one thing. Irina is there and she's not a panther anymore, because we found out that in order for her to become human again, she has to kill somebody. And he was the sacrifice. He goes back into the house and Irina's there. He points his gun at her and goes, "Why did you kill the guy? You could have killed me." She tells him flat out that she didn't want to kill him because she loves him. The weird thing is that her voice is very different from what it was before. It's deeper and kind of distorted. I don't understand why they did that. She's talking to him and saying, "Shoot me, kill me," which she refuses. And then she comes up with something that's kind of genius and really weird at the same time. She tells him, "Then free me. I want to be with my own kind." She's saying, "Screw me so that I can be the leopard, so I can stay at the zoo and not be a danger to anybody." She starts taking her top off and going into the other room, presumably to be ready for one more night of passion with the guy she loves. She's walking back into the room and we see her through a window that looks into it, and more nudity ensues, along with another weird sex scene because he agrees to have sex with her and effectively make her a leopard again. Except this time, it's even more awkward because he ties her hands to the bedpost, and in my head I'm going, okay, yeah, that's kinda smart, but we've seen Paul tear the fuck out of furniture before, so how is that gonna hold her down at all? I'm just sitting here watching this sex scene of her tied up in some weird, stupid bondage way, and him getting on top of her, and she's just staring up into space. In my mind, I'm going, this is weird, why are you showing me this? I don't want to see this. Who wants to see this shit? Could definitely not me. And thank you, gods. We finally get the ending of this movie, and it's pretty mundane in comparison to the rest of it. Thank gods again. We see Oliver working again and find out that he and Alice are back together because they're kissing on each other again. He leaves his office and goes walking around the zoo to where Irina is and feeds her a little bit of meat. She takes really gingerly from him and allows him to pet her. The last thing we see is Oliver looking into the green eyes of the leopard and the leopard roaring at him before we get David Bowie's beautiful voice once again. Holy shit, this is finally over. Holy shit.
I'm gonna meow the f*** out of you. Meow! Meow! No! Meow, bitch!
Now that I've watched Cat People and told you exactly what happened, what do I think? Well, if I were to compare it to Pin, it was more watchable in a sense because, while Pin was just straight cringe, there actually were some moments in Cat People that were really cool, and at least the premise of it was interesting to some extent. How they executed it? Not good at all. Not good whatsoever. Acting was bad, really awkward scenes, more tits and ass than any kind of decent acting in that movie or any really interesting and well done practical effects. So would I suggest you watch this? No. In fact, I would never suggest this movie for anybody, even if you are some sort of frickin' masochist, because it's just weird, and not the cheesy weird, I don't know what the fuck is going on half the time. More so out of just sheer cringe than any actual confusion. So if I was gonna rate this on a scale from 80s genius to Freddy Krueger dumpster fire, I would probably consider this movie Cujo shit. It's not extremely terrible, but I'm not about to recommend it to anybody. And with that, I'll see you in the next episode of 80s Cinema Carnage.